Did you like that? Did I do a good job? Anyways, Pirates of the Caribbean, or Caribbean if you're stupid. Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl is a 2003 masterpiece starring Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley. And that's all I'm going to say about the movie, because this is not a review of any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's more of a retrospective about the whole series so far. Because Pirates of the Caribbean has really had a rise and fall situation, and I'd really like to talk about it. So the first movie was directed by Gore Verbinski, and it came out in 2003, and when it first came out, Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney, really didn't have high hopes for it. He didn't like the movie at all when he saw it. But then the movie made a bunch of money and he greenlit 2 sequels, the first of which being Dead Man's Chest, which a lot of fans consider to be the best in the series. Personally, I like the first 3 movies equally, but I can understand easily why this would be someone's favorite. Because it continues the story from the first movie, while setting up the next movie, while still containing itself to be one movie. It also introduces us to one of the greatest movie villains of all time. Plus there's this epic fight scene near the end of the movie that both manages to be filled with tension and hilarious at the same time. Realistically, with the way the first movie ends, there's no reason for this movie to exist, but I'm really glad it does because I consider it to be one of the best movie sequels of all time, especially by Disney standards. And despite the fact that the first movie doesn't really beg for a sequel, because the third movie had already been greenlit while this one was in production, they end the movie with a cliffhanger that sets up the third movie. Which brings us to Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. This was originally intended to be the final movie, and it probably should have been, because the series goes really downhill after this one, but I'll come back to that later. This movie really is just a continuation of the second movie, and I think it does the job really well. It's a little bit convoluted and confusing, but it still has this grand scale to it, and it has all these callbacks to the second and first movie that really makes it feel like the end of a trilogy. And the climax of this movie is not only the best in the Pirates series, but it's one of my favorite climaxes to any movie ever. I mean, look at this. Look at how much is going on, and the color palette, like, this is just a beautifully shot and directed scene. How can you not get invested in this? Well, apparently a lot of people couldn't, because out of the first 3 Pirates movies, this is the one with the worst ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. But it is held in very high regard among the Pirates of the Caribbean fanbase. Because let's face it, even though this movie is a little bit long, and you have to pay really close attention to understand everything, it's still awesome. But sadly, it's the last awesome movie in the series. You see, with Disney originally only greenlighting 2 sequels, the writers just decided to write 2 and 3 at the same time, so that way, it would really feel like a solid trilogy. 3 would end everything from 1 and 2. All loose ends would be tied up, and there would be no way to continue the series, because they want it to feel like a solid trilogy. But then money happened. Pirates of the Caribbean 3 was the highest grossing movie of the franchise so far, so even though the series had come to a proper ending, Disney decided to greenlight a 4th movie to make more money. And that really is all the 4th movie feels like, a ploy by Disney to get as much money out of this series as they possibly can. They really wanted to milk this series for as much as it was possibly worth, which results in a 4th movie that's really unnecessary and pretty boring too. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen way worse movies than this, but it just feels bland and lifeless. Part of that is due to the absence of Gore Verbinski, who directed the first 3 Pirates movies and happens to look just like my principal. Verbinski turned down the 4th Pirates movie, saying that there was no reason to continue the series other than to just make money. And truer words have never been spoken. Because in my opinion, this is the weakest out of the Pirates series. It's dull, boring, Jack Sparrow is the main character, but he really has nothing to do with the plot, and a large portion of the original cast is missing. Johnny Depp and Jeffrey Rush are really the only redeeming qualities this movie has. I know a lot of people consider 5 to be the worst one, and maybe that's true, but I at least have a few good things I can say about 5. So let's move on, and I'll do that right now. Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales is possibly the only movie where I can say Johnny Depp is the worst part. It's not even his fault, his acting in the movie is completely fine, it's just that they completely changed the way his character acts in this movie. The writers took a character who's known for being deviously clever and cunning, and they turned him into kind of an idiot. No, not kind of an idiot, just an idiot. All those kinds of classic Jack Sparrow moments where he would do something seemingly impossible with ease are gone here. Here he's just a drunk old man who stumbles around a boat, and everything out of his mouth makes you question how much he's had to drink today. Jack Sparrow was always an alcoholic, but here he's just a drunk dude. But aside from Jack Sparrow, how's the movie? Well, it's average. It's not boring like 4, but it's not epic like the first 3. It's just kind of another Disney movie. It's about the same level as The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's not a bad movie, it's just another movie. But what's sad about that is that, for a while, Pirates of the Caribbean had the same status as Harry Potter. It was a huge fantasy series. Now it's just a movie series. Generic as Transformers. Although at least the 4th Transformers movie was somewhat entertaining. Pirates of the Caribbean 5 is better than 4, but it's never gonna be as good as the first three movies, and if they continue the series, it's probably only gonna get more generic and boring. So please, Disney, if you cannot convince Gore Verbinski to come back, then stop making these movies. Because the more these movies keep coming out and getting lamer and lamer, the more they take away from how awesome the first three movies were. I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing can change how cool those movies were, but the more you keep making lame sequels, the more it takes away from the legacy that those movies left behind. So in conclusion, Pirates of the Caribbean is a great series until it isn't. I highly recommend the first three movies, but maybe avoid the last two. I mean, if you're really desperate for another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, it's not a bad movie if you want to go ahead and watch the fifth one, but definitely avoid the fourth one because it's really not worth your time. And you don't have to watch it to understand the fifth movie anyway, so really, why bother? That's really all I have to say about the rise and fall of Pirates of the Caribbean, so I guess have a good day.